Today on Northern Revolutions, I thought I'd talk about some of the many bands that I've seen in concert. So stay tuned. Hey, violent community, welcome to Northern Revolutions. I'm Rob. Welcome back if you're returning. Welcome if you're new. Today, I thought I would share some stories of some of the many bands I've seen in concert. I've probably been going to concerts for 25 years, probably. I went through my record collection and I picked out, I think, 10 albums from bands that I've seen live, and most cases it's the record I pulled is the tour that I went to. So we're going to talk about those today, and hope you find it interesting. So I can't start any discussion of bands I've seen live without talking about the band that I've seen live the most. Regular viewers on my channel will probably guess who this is. Toronto country rock band Blue Rodeo. I have seen them 47 times. That's not an exaggeration. That's not a lie. I've seen them 47 times. But I'm showing this CD because I haven't shown this album before. This is their album Palace of Gold. This is from 2002. It's not available on vinyl. It never has been and likely never will be, which is a shame because it's a friggin' phenomenal album. Their tradition, and it's still going on, is obviously not during the pandemic, but every sort of late January, early February, they would play a Friday night and a Saturday night at a little town called Stratford, Ontario, which is 2.5 hours from Detroit, if that makes any sense. At the Stratford Festival Theatre, which is a Shakespearean theatre. The Stratford Festival puts on, very famous in Canada for Shakespeare plays. They play there twice a year, every winter, and it's sort of the fan favorite of all their shows, and it sort of stands apart from the rest of their tour. They sort of play a little more deeper cut stuff and whatever. So when I saw them, and I've been to the Stratford show probably 10 times at this point. I went to this show in 2002 with my girlfriend, now wife. We had been dating 6 months, and she liked Blue Rodeo. And so we went to see them at the Stratford Festival Theatre. It was her first Blue Rodeo show, and it was amazing. After the show was over, I went down to the stage and asked one of the sound guys for one of the set lists from the band. So he tore it off the stage and gave it to me. I brought it back to my girlfriend, now wife, and said, let's go get this signed. I knew somebody so we could get backstage, and we did, and met the entire band, and they signed her set list, and they signed this copy of the CD for me. This is actually the rarer US pressing on Rounder because it's got 3 bonus live tracks on it. My wife was a little smitten with Jim Cuddy, the lead singer, as most women are. But suffice it to say, as dates go, I think I hit a home run on that one. Well, I'm showing CDs, and I like to show CDs because I'm not really a CD guy anymore, but this one I don't have on vinyl. I don't even know if it's available on vinyl. This is Paul McCartney's Back in the US, which was his tour from also 2002. I saw Paul at the Air Canada Centre in Toronto which is where the Toronto Maple Leafs play. Um, it was the one and only time that I saw Paul McCartney. That was kind of a bucket list thing for me because regular viewers will know I'm a Beatles fanatic. The Beatles were what got me into music. And obviously, I'm never going to get to see the Beatles because there's only half of them alive. Uh, so I went to see Paul. Uh, and I will say it was nothing short of a religious experience almost. I'm not a religious person, but I guess that's how I describe it. When he started playing All My Lovin', which was, I think, the third song of the set, and it sounded just like the Beatles. I mean, his band replicates that sound phenomenally well. I was it was almost like an out of body experience for someone so passionate about the Beatles. Here's Paul McCartney, and it's playing a Beatles song, and it sounds exactly like the Beatles. It was just almost transcendental. It was the most amazing concert experience ever in my life. Ooh, pun intended. It was a phenomenal tour. Everyone knows how great Paul is. So, I mean, there's nothing more to elaborate on that. Great experience. One more CD before I get to the vinyl. I only have a greatest hits by this artist. Shame on me. Neil Diamond, or as I like to say, Neil Diamond. Pardon my French. I saw Neil again at the Air Canada Centre in Toronto. Would have been about 2011, possibly. I went with my mother and her best friend. My mom wanted to go, and her best friend wanted to go. My mom was going to buy tickets, and she said, "Do you want to come see Neil Diamond?" And I'm like, "Do I want to see Neil Diamond? You bet I do." So we went, and Neil is a goddamn legend for a reason. Impeccable showman, entertaining as hell, glittery shirt. God damn, he was great. I don't know what to say. To hear those songs, you know, Cracklin' Rosie and Holly Holy and Sweet Caroline, you know all the songs. It was awesome, and it was kind of cool. I've actually been to several concerts with my mom. It was a nice experience because it was only a year or so after my father had passed away. So her and I did some concerts together, and it was a great experience. So Neil Diamond at the Air Canada Centre. Okay, next up is an artist I've seen a couple times. This is Bryan Adams. I saw him in the early 2000s on the Best of Me tour, and it was, it didn't work very well as a three-piece band, in my opinion. Then I saw him on the Reckless Anniversary Tour, which was 2014. This is actually the 2 LP anniversary edition of Reckless that has an extra record that has, let's see, it's got 7 songs from the Reckless sessions that didn't make the final cut of the album. And then there's 3 songs that are live from the Hammersmith Ballroom. So when I saw him on this tour, my wife and I went and saw him at Cops Coliseum in Hamilton, Ontario. And he played Reckless start to finish, including the 7 extra songs that are on the anniversary edition. And then the rest of the show is obviously the rest of his hits. And he was amazing. The highlight of the show, for the encore, Bryan walks out on stage with the band and he said, "I've got a couple friends here. I hope you don't mind if they join me for the encore." And out walks Randy Bachman from Bachman Turner Overdrive and Kim Mitchell from Max Webster and as a solo artist, which was bananas. They did, in addition to a couple of Bryan songs that I don't remember which ones they did, They obviously did Taking Care of Business because that was one of Bachman's hits. But instead of doing Patio Lanterns for Kim Mitchell, which I figured they would have done, they actually covered It Makes No Difference, which is a song by the band, which, I mean, among Canadian musicians, that group and that song is held in extremely high regard. So, with all three of those guys being Canadian, they played a Canadian treasure of a song to close out the show. So, phenomenal. Another band I've seen more than once, U2. I saw them on the Elevation Tour, which was early 2000-ish. I saw them at Cops Coliseum. And I saw them on the Songs of Innocence tour, or I guess what do they call it? The Innocence and Experience tour. This was when just the first album, Songs of Innocence, was out. It was before they had released Songs of Experience. My best friend Blake and I went to see them at Air Canada Centre in Toronto. Blake had nosebleed seats, but we were able to upgrade that. We were like 4 or 5 rows off the floor, not too far from where the little sort of satellite stage that they came out and did their little acoustic set. Blake and I have always loved this band. It's the one, I mean, Blake and I share a lot of musical tastes, but this has been the band that the two of us have always been just bonkers over. So it was great. While I had seen them before, it was awesome for Blake and I, because he and I both loved this band for so long. It was great to go see the show with my best friend. Loved it. Okay, this is one album that's going to cover 2 different bands. Let me explain. The Beach Boys. This is Pet Sounds. So, I saw Brian Wilson when he did his Pet Sounds, I think it was the 50th anniversary tour, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago. He came to Centre in the Square in Kitchener, Ontario, and it was him with Al Jardine and Blondie Chaplin and Brian's backing band, and they performed Pet Sounds in its entirety, which, what an experience, because Pet Sounds is one of the greatest albums ever recorded. You know, it's what led the Beatles to do Sgt. Pepper. I mean, it's a landmark album. So to hear Brian do it live, one of the greatest concert experiences ever. And this is a show that I went to with my mother. I mentioned her and I went to a few shows together, and thoroughly enjoyed this show. Brian Wilson is a genius. He's a musical genius. Without him, I don't think the Beach Boys would have been anything. So to hear him play his masterpiece was phenomenal. The other reason I show a Beach Boy record is I've also seen Mike Love's Beach Boys. How do I talk about this? I am not a great fan of Mike Love. He certainly was not the talent in that band. He had some. I mean, I guess he's a bit of a lyricist, but I tend to think he sort of milks the Beach Boy thing. Having said that, his band includes, it's him and Bruce Johnston and then a host of other musicians. And I will say, I thoroughly enjoyed the concert. It was fun. Like it was a dancing, singing fun. I saw them up at Casino Rama in Rama, Ontario, which is probably about 2.5 hours north of Toronto. It was a lot of fun. Was it musically great in the same regard that Brian Wilson was? No. still an enjoyable, fun show. I mean, he plays the moldy oldie greatest hits and does it well. Um, the other thing, my wife and I went to this, and we're sitting there in our seats before the show started, and I noticed there were two drum kits, and I thought, I wonder. I didn't say anything to my wife. And a few minutes later, when the band walks on stage, there's John Cowsill, the drummer. I'm actually friends with his nephew. Um, and another drummer, one Mr. John Stamos, which my wife went, because it's John Stamos. And even I'll admit he's a handsome man. So that was fun from a sort of novelty perspective. So I've seen Brian Wilson and Al Jardine, and then I've seen Mike Love and Bruce Johnston. So the Beach Boys. I am reluctant to show this record for fear of losing some credibility in the vinyl community or getting laughed at. But I'm going to show it anyway, because why the hell not? Taylor Swift. Yes, I've been to a Taylor Swift concert. My wife and I went to see Taylor on the Red Tour at the Rogers Centre in Toronto, where the Blue Jays play. And it was awesome. I'm sorry. A lot of people don't like Taylor, and that's cool. I have nothing but respect for her. When I see a lot of the other pop music that's out today, people her age and younger, most of it is shit. Musically, it's not there. Lyrically, whatever. A lot of pop music nowadays is just a marketing machine, and you don't need any talent, and they'll throw everything they can at it to make it sellable. And granted, Taylor has a giant marketing machine behind her as well. But at her core, she's a young woman that writes her own material. Yes, she has co-writers, but she writes her own material. She plays a few instruments, piano, guitar, 6-string banjo. And she sings reasonably well. And she knows how to put on a stage show. I'm not going to knock it, because she's got more talent than a lot of pop music people her age. So you don't have to like her. That's cool. I thought it was a thoroughly enjoyable concert. Went with my wife. My wife had a blast. And it was great to see tons of kids losing their minds, enjoying music, because isn't that really what it's all about? I mean, I remember being a kid and getting into music, so that was great to see. So I throw this in there because, yeah, I saw Taylor, and I'll admit it, and you can laugh at me all you want. It really doesn't matter. Next up is a band I wanted to see for a very long time and didn't for a very long time because their ticket prices were always crazy expensive. And then I got to the point where I was, had a job that I was making enough money that I could justify the tickets. So my wife and I went to see the Eagles. I've been an Eagles fan for a long time. Always wanted to see them, but it's like $200 a ticket. While I would pay that for McCartney without even thinking about it, it's like, I don't know if I want to pay that for the Eagles. Well, it got to the point that I had enough disposable income that when this record came out in 2007, being the first new album that the Eagles have put out in 27 years or whatever it was, I said to my wife, then girlfriend, let's go see them. It's probably going to be the only time we're going to get to see the Eagles touring new material. And so far that has proven to be the case. Also glad I saw them at this time because, 5 or 6 years ago, Glenn Frey passed away. So This was wonderful because it was the Eagles. It was new material. I wish Felter had been with them, but this was after he was fired. Um, but what was great for me, I worship Joe Walsh. He's my guitar hero. I think he's crazy, but I so enjoy watching him play guitar and listening to him play guitar. So to see Joe Walsh play live, musical bucket list for sure. So this was a great show. It was like 2.5 hours long, almost 3 hours. And I remember the Eagles all came out on stage in suits, and Glenn Fry says to the audience something to the effect of, "I hope you don't mind if we're dressed up, but if suits were good enough for the Beatles, then it's goddamn good enough for us." So glad I saw them on this tour. In the same vein as the Eagles, another band that I had wanted to see for years was Aerosmith. And I finally saw them. This is the Honkin' on Bobo album, which everybody hates. I like it a lot. It was their blues album that came out in 2004. And I saw them on that tour at Copps Coliseum in Hamilton, where I've seen numerous other bands. I've seen Bryan Adams there, and I've seen U2 there, and I don't remember who else. I went to this show with another one of my best friends. His name was Jim. And he and I went to this show. And the opener was Cheap Trick, which that in itself was awesome. Because I'd always wanted to see Cheap Trick. And these guys were great. Aerosmith is always great. And a couple things about this show, or that I think about when I think about this show, is my wife, who was not my wife yet at that time, she wasn't even my girlfriend at that time, was at this show as well. And her and I actually met a month later, sitting on a patio, and we got talking about music somehow, and Aerosmith came up. She goes, "Oh, I just saw them last month." I saw them too. And it turns out we were sitting like a section away from each other, which is kind of interesting. But the other thing that's sort of bittersweet when I think about that is I'm glad that my buddy Jim and I went to see this show, and I think it was the only concert he and I ever went to. Unfortunately, Jim passed away of a massive heart attack about 1.5 years ago now. And I miss him a lot. So at least whenever I think of Honkin' on Bobo, the album or the tour, not the act, I think about Jim and the great time we had seeing Aerosmith. Okay, last one. I saved the best one for last, I think. I like this story. I've mentioned many times that my dad's favorite band was Fleetwood Mac. I've seen Fleetwood Mac twice. The first time I saw them was on the Say You Will tour. This was Fleetwood Mac without Christine McVie. She had retired from touring because she had a crippling fear of flying. So this is the album that they made without her. I enjoy this album. I think the single Peacekeeper is great. I love it. I remember when this album came out and they announced the tour, and I didn't have a lot of money. I was working full-time at a paint store, so I didn't have a lot of disposable income, but I made sure that I had money, and I bought 2 tickets to see them at the Air Canada Centre in Toronto, because where I live, that's where you go to see the big shows. And I surprised my dad, because he had never seen Fleetwood Mac before, and it was his favorite band. I think we were driving somewhere, and the song came on the radio, and we were talking about the new song and whatever, and I said to Dad, "How would you like to go see them?" "Oh, that'd be awesome." I said, "Great, we got tickets." Never seen the man so excited. Sorry, this tears me up a little bit. I I've mentioned many times my dad was the reason that I'm a music fan and a record collector, and I have some of his records. The joy that it brought me to take him to see his favorite band, I'll never forget. And we had an amazing time. And it was the only concert that Dad and I ever went to, because he passed away about 5 years after. But I'll always remember that I was able to give him that, which is I'll treasure that memory. So I did see Fleetwood Mac again on the what do they call the show must go on tour, when it was the reunited Rumors lineup, when Christine rejoined the band. My wife and I went, and we sort of went in memory of Dad, because he would have loved to have, he loved Christine, so he would have loved to have seen that show. But at least he got to see Fleetwood Mac once in his life. So there you go, folks. There's 10 albums by 10 bands that I've seen live. I hope you found those stories somewhat interesting. Thank you for watching. I will see everyone again real soon. Catch you on the flip side.